Texas, a name synonymous with vast landscapes and larger-than-life stories, but beneath the sprawling plains, within the dense thickets, and along its winding creeks lie centuries of whispered legends, unsolved mysteries, and unsettling truths. Today, we journey deep into the heart of the Lone Star State, a place of rugged history, certainly, but also a land echoing with tales that defy easy explanation. Beyond the dusty trails and historic missions drift stories that crawl under the skin. Spectral riders on lonely plains, mysterious lights in the desert night, creatures lurking in the shadows, and treasures lost to time. We're about to explore 12 of the most chilling and captivating legends ever bound to this wild and enigmatic state. Are you ready to confront the shadows of Texas? Let's begin. The Marfa Lights, ghosts of the Texas desert. Deep in the high desert grasslands of West Texas, under vast dark skies near the small, artsy town of Marfa, lies an enduring enigma known as the Marfa Lights. For well over a century, travelers, ranchers, and locals have reported witnessing strange, elusive lights dancing on the horizon, particularly in the area of Mitchell Flat, southeast of the town. These are not the steady, predictable beams of known light sources, but something far more baffling. Witness accounts vary, but typically describe glowing orbs, sometimes white, yellow, orange, or red, occasionally even blue or green. They might appear individually, in pairs, or in clusters. Their behavior is what truly sets them apart. These lights are said to hover, dart across the landscape at incredible speed, merge together, split apart, dim, brighten, or vanish abruptly, only to reappear moments later elsewhere. They often seem shy, sometimes receding or disappearing when approached directly. They appear low to the ground, often near the Chinati Mountains, in an area largely uninhabited and difficult to access. While modern reports are common, the history of the light stretches back further. Apocryphal tales sometimes link them to Native American legends, though concrete evidence for this is scarce. The first widely cited historical account comes from a young cowhand named Robert Reed Ellison in 1883, who reported seeing flickering lights while driving cattle through Paisano Pass and assumed they were Apache campfires, only to be told by other settlers that they had seen the lights frequently and couldn't identify their source. Reports continued sporadically through the early 20th century, gaining more widespread attention mid-century, especially after mentions in publications like Coronet magazine and later television shows focused on the unexplained. What makes the Marfa Light such a persistent legend is the lack of a single, universally accepted explanation. Skeptics and scientists have proposed numerous theories, and indeed, many reported sightings can likely be attributed to mundane sources. The most common explanation involves vehicle headlights from US Highway 67, south of Mitchell Flat. Atmospheric conditions, particularly temperature inversions common in the desert, can cause refraction, bending of light, and mirages, making distant headlights appear to float, dance, split, and hover in ways that look unnatural. Studies, including one by the Society of Physics students from Texas State University, have strongly correlated many sightings with traffic on this highway. Other proposed natural explanations include campfires or ranch lights distorted by distance and atmospheric effects, geophysical lights, though Marfa isn't known for significant seismic activity, or rare phenomena like ball lightning. However, these explanations don't satisfy everyone, nor do they easily account for all sightings. Believers point to reports predating automobiles, sightings on nights when highway traffic is confirmed absent, or lights observed moving in ways that seem inconsistent with distant headlights or fires, such as vertical movements or extremely high speeds. This opens the door to more speculative and folkloric interpretations. Some whisper the lights are ghosts, perhaps spirits of Spanish conquistadors searching for gold, Apache warriors slain in battle, or long-lost pioneers wandering the desert plains. Others suggest UFOs or other paranormal phenomena, drawn to the stark beauty and isolation of the region. They are sometimes described as will-o'-the-wisps or other spectral entities common in folklore worldwide. Recognizing the intense public interest, Texas built an official Marfa Lights viewing area about 9 miles east of Marfa on US Highway 90/67, offering a panoramic vista towards Mitchell Flat. On clear nights, visitors gather here, hoping to catch a glimpse of the phenomenon. The town even hosts an annual Marfa Lights festival. The Marfa Lights remain officially unexplained. While atmospheric effects and distant artificial lights likely account for many, perhaps even most, sightings, a core mystery endures for some observers who witness lights that seem to defy these explanations. The Marfa Lights persist as a captivating legend, a testament to the power of the unexplained, woven into the fabric of the vast, beautiful, and sometimes eerie landscape of the West Texas Chihuahuan Desert. They continue to draw the curious, the skeptical, and the hopeful, all scanning the dark horizon for that elusive spectral dance. The Texas Bigfoot, shadow of the piney woods. When people imagine the towering, elusive figure of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, their minds usually drift to the misty, dense forests of the Pacific Northwest. Yet the sprawling state of Texas, often associated with cowboys and arid plains, holds a surprisingly strong claim within this creature's lore. For nearly 2 centuries, the Lone Star State, particularly its vast eastern forests, has been a fertile ground for sightings of large, hairy, ape-like beings, creatures known locally by various names, including the southern Sasquatch, or increasingly among researchers, the wood ape. Unlike the stereotypical image of Texas, the eastern part of the state boasts nearly 12 million acres of forest land, dominated by the piney woods and the unique ecological area known as the Big Thicket National Preserve. This region, sometimes called the biological crossroads of North America, is a dense tangle of pines, hardwoods, swamps, and bayous, an environment seemingly vast and wild enough to conceal a hidden primate. It's primarily from these deep woods that reports emerge, so numerous that the town of Jefferson has been dubbed the Bigfoot capital of Texas. Descriptions provided by eyewitnesses often align with classic Bigfoot accounts, a creature standing significantly taller than a human, powerfully built with broad shoulders, seemingly no neck, long arms, and covered in hair, typically described as reddish-brown or dark brown. But the Texas accounts carry their own unique flavor. Early stories, like the one documented by the Texas Folklore Society in 1924 about the Wild Woman of the Navidad, a fast, hairy creature that terrified horses, hint at a long history predating the modern Bigfoot craze. Local names like Ol Mossy Back or the Wild Man of the Big Thicket further embed the creature in regional folklore. Evidence presented by believers mirrors that found elsewhere, but often with a distinct Texas context. Hunters and hikers report fleeting glimpses of massive figures melting into the dense undergrowth. Strange, large footprints, sometimes measuring up to 24 inches long, according to reports, are discovered pressed into muddy trails or creek beds. Eerie sounds echo through the woods at night. Resonant howls, screams unlike any known animal, and distinct wood knocks, sharp raps made by striking wood against trees, which some researchers believe might be a form of communication used by these creatures. An unusual, strong, and unpleasant odor is also frequently mentioned in close encounter reports. Serious investigation into these claims has been undertaken in Texas. Organizations like the North American Wood Ape Conservancy, Lechanahuac, which evolved from earlier Texas-based research groups, approach the subject with a scientific mindset. They use the term wood ape deliberately, distinguishing their search for a real, unlisted primate species, possibly related to the extinct giant ape Gigantopithecus blacki, from the more mythological or paranormal associations sometimes linked to Bigfoot. NAWAC members conduct field research, deploying camera traps, thermal imagers, and undertaking long-duration expeditions into remote areas, particularly within the four-state region of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana, arguing that if this habitat supports large black bear populations, it could potentially support a small population of large primates as well. Of course, skepticism remains high. The lack of a body, clear fossil evidence, or unambiguous DNA samples is a significant hurdle for scientific acceptance. Many sightings can potentially be explained as misidentifications of black bears, which are common in East Texas and can stand upright, feral hogs, other wildlife, or even hoaxes. Footprints can be created by erosion, other animals, or outright fabrication. The dense woods that provide plausible hiding spots also make clear observation and photography incredibly difficult. Despite the lack of definitive proof, the legend of the Texas Bigfoot or wood ape endures. It persists through compelling eyewitness accounts, often from credible individuals accustomed to the outdoors, and the tantalizing, though inconclusive, physical evidence. The creature remains unverified by science, a cryptid dwelling in the shadowy space between folklore and potential zoological discovery. It serves as a potent symbol of the untamed wilderness that still exists within the Lone Star State, a reminder that mysteries might still lurk deep within the heart of the piney woods. Ghosts of the Alamo, Echoes of Defiance. The Alamo in San Antonio is more than just a historic mission and fortress. It's a shrine deeply embedded in the heart of Texas identity, symbolizing courage, sacrifice, and the fight for independence. But beyond its well-documented history, the Alamo is also steeped in legend, whispered to be one of the most haunted locations in the entire state, its stone walls echoing with the spectral remnants of its turbulent past. The roots of these ghost stories are inextricably linked to the brutal events of February and March 1836. During the Texas Revolution, a small band of Texian defenders, including legendary figures like Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, and William B. Travis, held the Alamo against the vastly larger army of Mexican General Santa Anna. After a 13-day siege, the mission fell in a bloody pre-dawn battle on March 6th. Nearly all the defenders perished in the intense fighting, their deaths becoming a powerful rallying cry, "Remember the Alamo!" that fueled the eventual Texian victory. It is this intense trauma, sacrifice, and violent death that many believe has permanently imprinted itself upon the site. Perhaps the oldest and most foundational ghost story associated with the Alamo occurred just weeks after the battle. Following the Texian victory at San Jacinto, Santa Anna's retreating army was ordered to destroy the remaining Alamo structures. As Mexican General Andrade and his soldiers approached with torches and crowbars, legend claims they were confronted by terrifying apparitions. Some versions describe spectral figures rising along the walls, wielding flaming swords. Others tell of ghostly sentinels with fierce expressions, warning the soldiers away. Whatever the form, the apparitions were reportedly so frightening that the soldiers refused to proceed, leaving the battered mission church and long barracks standing. For believers, this was the first sign that the spirits of the defenders remained, eternally guarding the site they died protecting. Over the subsequent years, countless visitors, staff members, security guards, and paranormal investigators have reported experiencing phenomena that defy easy explanation. The most common accounts involve apparitions. Spectral figures resembling Texian defenders, sometimes described in buckskins or period clothing, have been seen patrolling the grounds or peering from windows, particularly within the iconic chapel, the Mission Church. Others report seeing figures resembling Mexican soldiers from Santa Anna's army, perhaps caught in a loop of the battle. Ghostly monks from the Alamo's earlier Spanish mission era are also said to appear, gliding silently through the complex. Even apparitions of women and children have been reported, possibly linked to the non-combatants present during the siege. Disembodied sounds are frequently reported. Phantom footsteps echoing on the stone floors when no one is physically present. Faint whispers or disembodied voices heard in quiet corners, and occasionally, the distant chilling sounds of battle. muffled shouts, cries, or even phantom musket fire. Unexplained sensations are also common. Sudden, intense cold spots in areas like the Long Barrack, where much of the heaviest fighting occurred, an overwhelming feeling of sadness or despair, or the distinct, unnerving sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. Specific recurring figures sometimes mentioned include a small blonde-haired boy seen near an upper window of what is now the gift shop, and a lone male figure observed pacing the roofline as if on sentry duty. Skeptics, naturally, offer alternative explanations. The Alamo's profound and tragic history creates a powerful atmosphere that can easily stimulate overactive imaginations. The human tendency for pareidolia might cause people to see figures in shadows or patterns. Natural sounds like the wind whistling through the old structures, the settling of the building, or ambient city noise could be misinterpreted. Furthermore, visitors often arrive expecting to feel something, making them susceptible to suggestion. As with most hauntings, there is no definitive, scientifically verifiable proof of ghosts at the Alamo, yet the stories persist. Whether attributed to lingering spiritual energy, traumatic historical residue, or simply the power of human psychology interacting with a place of immense historical weight, the legends of the Alamo's ghosts add another layer to its profound mystique. They serve as a haunting counterpart to the historical narrative, ensuring that the call to "Remember the Alamo" resonates not just with the memory of heroic sacrifice, but also with the chilling possibility that the defenders never truly left their post. The Lost San Saba Mine, Jim Bowie's Phantom Silver. Deep within the rolling limestone heart of the Texas Hill Country lies the legend of one of America's most sought-after lost treasures, the Lost San Saba Mine, often whispered in the same breath as its most famous seeker, Jim Bowie. For centuries, this tale of a fabulously rich silver deposit, worked by the Spanish and then swallowed by time and conflict, has lured adventurers into the rugged terrain, chasing whispers of glittering fortune. The story's roots stretch back to the mid-18th century, a time when Spain sought to expand its control over Texas and exploit its rumored mineral wealth. In 1757, the Spanish established Presidio San Saba near the San Saba River, close to modern-day Menard, ostensibly to protect the nearby mission Santa Cruz de San Saba, built for the Lipan Apache. However, many believed the Presidio's true purpose was to serve as a base for silver mining operations. Early Spanish reports, including a 1756 expedition led by Bernardo de Miranda y Flores, mentioned finding almagres, a term that could mean red ochre or low-grade ore, but which became conflated in legend with rich silver veins. The mission met a swift and violent end, destroyed by a large force of Comanche and allied tribes in 1758. The Presidio survived longer, but was eventually abandoned, leaving the region contested territory and shrouding any Spanish mining activities in mystery. Over half a century later, the legend gained its most famous champion, James Bowie. The frontiersman, already renowned for his formidable knife and adventurous spirit, reportedly became convinced of the mine's existence in the early 1830s. Stories claim he obtained knowledge of its location, perhaps from Apache allies or old Spanish contacts. In November 1831, Bowie, accompanied by his brother Rezin and a small group of men, set out from San Antonio on an expedition to locate the fabled mine. They never reached their goal. Near present-day Calf Creek, they were ambushed by a large Native American war party, often identified as Caddo, Waco, or Tawakoni. In a desperate day-long battle fought from a natural defensive position, Bowie's vastly outnumbered group managed to inflict heavy casualties and repel the attackers, surviving against incredible odds. While the expedition failed to find the mine, this legendary fight cemented the association between Jim Bowie and the Lost San Saba Mine in the public imagination. Bowie's death defending the Alamo in 1836 only intensified the legend. Did the secret of the mine's location die with him, or were there clues left behind? In the years and decades that followed, countless prospectors, historians, and treasure hunters descended upon the hill country, particularly the area around the ruins of Presidio San Sabah. Armed with dubious maps, fragments of lore passed down through generations, metal detectors, and sheer determination, they have scoured canyons, crawled into caves, and chipped away at rock formations, searching for any sign of the lost Spanish silver. Landmarks like Paxsaddle Mountain or Honey Creek became focal points for various versions of the legend. Yet the mine remained stubbornly lost, fueling endless speculation. Was it mined out centuries ago? Did the Spanish deliberately conceal the entrance, or perhaps the local Native American tribes, wary of outsiders, ensured its location remained secret? Skepticism, of course, runs deep. Geologists point out that while minor silver deposits exist in the Llano Uplift region, there's little evidence to support the existence of a single massive bonanza as described in the legends. The Spanish term almagris likely referred to much less valuable minerals. It's probable that the mine's richness was greatly exaggerated over time, fueled by hope and rumor. Some historians even suggest that Bowie, a known land speculator, might have intentionally promoted the story of the lost mine to attract settlers and investment to the region, or simply to enhance his own legendary status. Whether it was a genuine silver bonanza hidden by history, a modest Spanish excavation inflated by folklore, or merely a prospector's pipe dream, the lost San Saba mine endures as one of Texas's most captivating legends. It embodies the allure of the unknown frontier, the romanticism of buried Spanish treasure, and the larger-than-life figure of Jim Bowie. The story continues to ignite the imagination, ensuring that the hunt for Bowie's phantom silver carries on, a testament to the persistent human dream of striking it rich against all odds. Jean Lafitte's lost treasure, pirate gold on the Texas coast. Along the sun-baked shores and winding bayous of the upper Texas coast, particularly around Galveston Island, lingers the enticing legend of buried treasure. Not just any treasure, but the vast, ill-gotten fortune of the infamous Jean Lafitte. Pirate, privateer, smuggler, spy, and sometimes even patriot, Lafitte remains one of the Gulf of Mexico's most enigmatic historical figures, and the belief that his hidden wealth still lies buried beneath the Texas soil fuels one of the region's most enduring treasure hunts. Jean Lafitte operated in the tumultuous world of the early 19th century Gulf Coast. While often branded a pirate by the Spanish, whose ships he frequently preyed upon under letters of marque, he gained a complex reputation, famously aiding General Andrew Jackson against the British at the Battle of New Orleans in 1815, earning a presidential pardon for his past deeds. Around 1817, Lafitte established a base he called Campeche on Galveston Island. This settlement quickly grew into a bustling, quasi-independent colony, a haven for his fleet of privateers, smugglers, merchants, and a rough-and-tumble population numbering perhaps 1,000 or more. From Campeche, Lafitte oversaw a lucrative smuggling operation, dealing in goods and notoriously enslaved people brought in defiance of U.S. law. Lafitte's reign in Galveston, however, was relatively short-lived. His operations eventually drew too much unwanted attention, particularly after some of his captains allegedly began attacking American vessels. Facing increasing pressure from the United States Navy, Lafitte was forced to abandon his island stronghold around 1820 or 1821. Legend holds that before he departed, unwilling to let his creation fall into enemy hands, he ordered Campeche burned to the ground, sailing away into the Gulf of Mexico under a cloud of smoke and mystery. It's within this dramatic departure that the seeds of the treasure legend are sown. The core belief is that Lafitte, having amassed considerable wealth through years of capturing Spanish prizes and smuggling, could not possibly transport all of his gold, silver, jewels, and valuable goods on his departing ships. Therefore, the story goes, he and his trusted men secretly buried numerous caches of treasure in strategic, hidden locations around Galveston Island, Galveston Bay, and adjacent coastal areas like Kima or the shores of inland lakes like Hendricks Lake. He supposedly intended to return later to retrieve his fortune, but either circumstance or death prevented him from recovering it all. Ever since Lafitte vanished from Texas shores, his ultimate fate is debated by historians. Treasure hunters have been captivated by the possibility of finding his buried hoards. Generations have searched, armed with everything from rumored maps passed down through families, cryptic clues found in old journals, sophisticated metal detectors, to simple shovels and unwavering hope. People have dug along beaches, probed the depths of murky bayous, and investigated old ruins, dreaming of unearthing chests overflowing with Spanish doubloons and pieces of eight. Specific spots, like an area near Kemah, once marked by 3 oak trees, became legendary targets, though definitive proof remains elusive. Naturally, the mystery deepens with time. If Lafitte buried so much treasure, why has no major, verifiable hoard ever been discovered? Did he manage to retrieve some of it himself before his death? Did some of his former associates recover caches based on their own knowledge? Or were the maps and clues simply too obscure? The locations reclaimed by shifting sands and rising waters? Skeptics offer more mundane explanations. Historically, pirates and privateers were far more likely to spend or reinvest their plunder quickly on supplies, ship repairs, crew payments, or personal indulgence, rather than undertake the risky and laborious process of burying large amounts of wealth. There's no credible documentation from Lafitte or his close associates confirming the burying of significant treasure. Furthermore, Lafitte was already a larger-than-life figure, and tales of buried pirate gold are a powerful and common trope that naturally attached itself to him, likely growing more elaborate with each retelling. Any isolated finds of old coins in the region could easily be misattributed to the famous pirate. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the legend of Jean Lafitte's lost treasure thrives. It's a story woven into the fabric of the Texas Gulf Coast, romanticizing a complex historical figure and keeping the adventurous spirit of the age of piracy alive. Whether genuine caches of gold lie waiting beneath the coastal landscape, or the treasure exists only in folklore, the search for Lafitte's lost fortune continues to capture the imagination, embodying the timeless allure of pirate legends and the intoxicating dream of discovering hidden riches. The Goatman of Old Alton Bridge, terror at the crossing, nestled in the woods of Denton County near the growing communities north of Dallas-Fort Worth, stands the Old Alton Bridge, a historic iron truss structure arching over Hickory Creek. It dates back to 1884 and once carried horses, wagons, and eventually cars. Now bypassed by a modern concrete bridge and open only to foot traffic, Old Alton Bridge carries something else. A dark reputation and a chilling legend that has earned it the ominous nickname Goatman's Bridge. The legend centers around a menacing entity said to haunt the bridge and the surrounding woods, the Goatman. Descriptions of this figure vary, contributing to the mystery. Some tales paint it as a terrifying demonic creature, a hulking figure with the horns and legs of a goat but the torso of a man, often accompanied by glowing red eyes and a palpable sense of malice. Others describe a more spectral presence, the vengeful ghost of a man wronged, whose appearances are heralded by strange lights, disembodied sounds, or unexplained physical phenomena. 2 primary origin stories attempt to explain the Goatman's presence. The most widely circulated and poignant version points to a dark chapter of racial injustice, likely originating sometime in the mid-20th century. It tells of Oscar Washburn, a successful and industrious African-American goat farmer who lived near the bridge in the late 1930s. His success reportedly earned him the grudging nickname, the Goatman, from some locals, but also attracted the venomous resentment of the Ku Klux Klan. According to the story, Klansmen abducted Washburn from his home, dragged him to the bridge, and hanged him from its iron trusses. When they went down to the creek bed below to confirm his death, they found the noose swinging empty. Washburn's body had mysteriously vanished. His enraged spirit, the legend claims, remains tethered to the bridge, violently protective of his domain and seeking vengeance against those who trespass. An alternative, perhaps older or simpler version, bypasses the historical narrative and casts the Goatman as an inherently supernatural or demonic being. In this telling, the creature is a satyr-like monster drawn to the bridge's isolation, or perhaps summoned by occult rituals performed in the woods nearby. This version emphasizes the creature's terrifying appearance and aggressive nature towards intruders. Regardless of the origin believed, generations of locals and thrill seekers have reported unsettling experiences at Goatman's Bridge. People claim to hear phantom hoofbeats clopping across the wooden planks when nothing is there, or sinister whispers and eerie laughter drifting from the surrounding darkness. Some report seeing glowing eyes watching them from the trees or catching glimpses of a large dark figure lurking on or near the bridge. Disembodied voices are sometimes heard, occasionally issuing a clear warning like, "Get off my bridge." A common piece of lore suggests that knocking 3 times on the bridge's metal structure after dark is a way to challenge or summon the Goatman. Other reported phenomena include visitors feeling touched, pushed, or even scratched by unseen hands, having rocks inexplicably thrown in their direction from the woods, encountering sudden foul odors, or seeing strange, inexplicable lights. Skeptics, naturally, question the legend's veracity. Historical research has struggled to definitively corroborate the specific details of the Oscar Washburn story, while the tragic history of racial violence in the late 19th century region is undeniable. This particular narrative may function more as folklore, powerfully encapsulating real historical traumas rather than recounting a single documented event. Many reported experiences can potentially be explained by natural causes. Animals moving in the woods, the wind creating strange sounds through the bridge's structure, car lights reflecting from the nearby highway, or natural decomposition causing odd smells. The bridge's notoriety also makes it a magnet for teenagers and pranksters, meaning some activity is undoubtedly staged. Furthermore, the power of suggestion is strong. Visiting a place famed for being haunted, especially at night, primes the imagination to interpret ambiguous sights and sounds as paranormal. Despite the skepticism, the legend of the Goatman of Old Alton Bridge remains one of the most popular and enduring ghost stories in North Texas. Its fame has been significantly boosted by features on numerous paranormal investigation television shows, drawing visitors from far and wide. The combination of a genuinely atmospheric historic location, a chilling central figure, and a backstory touching on themes of vengeance and social injustice gives the legend a potent grip on the public imagination. Whether haunted by a vengeful spirit, a primal entity, or simply by the fears visitors bring with them, Goatman's Bridge stands as a compelling landmark where Texas history, folklore, and the thrill of the unknown converge over the quiet creek below. The Headless Horseman of South Texas. In the vast, thorny, and often desolate brush country stretching between San Antonio and the Rio Grande Valley, tales are told of a truly terrifying spectral rider. This is not Washington Irving's quaint, sleepy, hollow spook, but a more visceral and gruesome figure rooted in the region's violent past, the Headless Horseman of South Texas, sometimes grimly referred to as the Dead Man in local lore. The apparition is described much as the name implies, a lone horseman, typically seen galloping furiously across the plains or through the dense chaparral, especially under the cloak of night. What makes the sight paralyzing is the horrifying absence of the rider's head. Some versions of the legend claim he carries his severed head, perhaps tucked into his saddlebag or dangling from the saddle horn, while others insist he is completely headless, a ragged stump where his neck should be. His spectral steed is often described as wild-eyed and equally ghostly, charging through the night as if pursued by demons, While variations exist, the most famous and historically charged origin story centers on a notorious horse thief named Vidal, sometimes given as Bidal, who plagued the region in the mid-19th century. As the tale goes, Vidal was eventually captured by formidable Texas Rangers, or a posse of vengeful ranchers. Legendary Texas figures like Creed Taylor and William Bigfoot Wallace are often woven into this narrative. Seeking to make a horrifying example to deter other rustlers, his captors allegedly enacted a brutal form of frontier justice. They decapitated Vidal, then gruesomely lashed his lifeless body upright onto the back of a wild Mustang. They tied the reins to the saddle horn and, in the most macabre versions, strapped Vidal's severed head, sometimes grotesquely placed within his sombrero, onto the front of the saddle. They then released the terrified horse, bearing its ghastly burden, to roam the prairies indefinitely. The sight of the headless rider became a terrifying deterrent, searing itself into local folklore. And according to the legend, even after the horse eventually died and the body decayed, the spectral image of the headless rider continued its phantom patrol. Other, less specific origin stories circulate as well. Some tell of an unfortunate rancher or vaquero who was murdered and decapitated over a land dispute, stolen cattle, or perhaps a forbidden love affair. His restless spirit is said to ride endlessly, searching for his lost head or seeking vengeance against his killers. Still other tales might vaguely link the apparition to nameless soldiers who lost their heads in the region's many skirmishes and wars. For generations, people in South Texas, particularly in areas around Duval, Jim Wells, and Live Oak counties, have reported sightings of this chilling figure. Encounters often occur late at night, sometimes during storms, adding to the terror. The headless horseman might appear suddenly alongside a traveler on a lonely road or be seen galloping across a moonlit field, only to vanish without a trace moments later. Witnessing this headless rider is said to instill profound fear and is sometimes considered a harbinger of misfortune. The legend is deeply intertwined with the history of South Texas itself, a land historically defined by vast ranches, cultural clashes, border conflicts, rampant cattle rustling, a serious crime often met with swift, harsh justice or vigilantism, and a general sense of lawlessness on the remote frontier. It was an environment where violent death was common, and tales of vengeance and restless spirits readily took root. Skeptics point out that the headless horseman is a well-established motif in folklore across many cultures, from the Irish Dullahan to German legends of the Wild Hunt, long predating the Texas version. It's likely that settlers brought these archetypal stories with them, adapting them to the local landscape and incorporating figures and events from Texas history, like the possibly real but likely embellished story of Vidal. Nighttime sightings could easily be misidentifications of ordinary riders, animals like deer, or even natural phenomena distorted by darkness, distance, heat haze, or dust devils common in the region. And as with many ghost stories, exaggeration, campfire tales passed off as truth, and deliberate hoaxes undoubtedly play a role. Yet whether this spectral rider is the genuine ghost of a brutally murdered man or a powerful folk legend synthesized from history and ancient archetypes, the headless horseman remains indelibly etched into the folklore of South Texas. He is a spectral embodiment of the region's wild, often brutal past, a chilling reminder of frontier justice and unresolved conflict. The phantom hoofbeats of the headless rider continue to echo in the imagination, forever galloping across the vast and lonely brush country. The Blue Ghost haunting spirits aboard the USS Lexington. Moored majestically in Corpus Christi Bay, the USS Lexington CV-16 stands as a proud monument to American naval history. This Essex-class aircraft carrier served with distinction through World War II, earning the nickname the Blue Ghost after Japanese propaganda repeatedly claimed her sunk only for the distinctively blue camouflaged carrier to reappear, seemingly resurrected in subsequent battles. Having survived numerous attacks, including a devastating kamikaze hit, and served for decades beyond the war, the Lexington now rests as a popular museum ship. But according to countless reports from staff, visitors, and paranormal investigators, the ship isn't entirely at rest. It's considered one of the most haunted vessels in the world, its decks and corridors allegedly still patrolled by the spectral remnants of its long and storied past. The sheer scale of reported paranormal activity aboard the Lex is staggering, covering nearly every corner of the massive labyrinthine ship. People report seeing full-bodied apparitions of sailors, often dressed in World War II-era uniforms, walking the hangar bay, passageways, or standing watch on the bridge, only to vanish moments later. Figures have been glimpsed in the engine room, the sick bay, the dental clinic, near vintage aircraft on display, and even in the captain's private quarters. Disembodied sounds are perhaps even more common. Footsteps are heard echoing on steel ladders and decks when no one is there. Voices whisper, mumble, or sometimes shout orders in empty compartments. Doors and heavy watertight hatches are heard opening or slamming shut on their own. Unexplained bangs, clangs, and the phantom noises of machinery grinding to life have been reported deep within the ship's bowels. Some have even claimed to hear the faint sound of vintage aircraft or mysterious alarms. Physical phenomena add another layer to the ship's haunted reputation. Lights are said to turn on and off inexplicably. Objects have reportedly moved on their own. Elevators sometimes operate without human command. Visitors and staff have described sudden, bone-chilling cold spots in certain areas, the unnerving feeling of being watched, or even feeling touched, pushed, or nudged by an unseen presence. Among the most frequently cited hotspots for this activity are the engine room, the sick bay, where many sailors would have suffered or died, the Combat Information Center, CICU, the forecastle, where the anchor chains are housed, and the flight deck. Over the years, certain spectral figures have become recurring parts of the Lexington's lore. One of the most well-known is Charlie, reportedly the spirit of an engine room crewman killed on board. Often described as blonde and sometimes wearing white officer's attire, Charlie is considered a relatively friendly ghost, sometimes seeming to guide tours, answer questions, or simply make his presence known through interaction with the machinery or flickering lights in the engine room. Other reported entities are less defined, perhaps linked to specific tragedies like the sailors killed in the November 1944 kamikaze attack off the Philippines, or crew members lost in accidents involving machinery, aircraft operations, or snapped arresting cables on the flight deck. Some theorize that the intense emotions, daily routines, and traumatic events experienced by thousands of crew members over decades have left a form of residual energy imprinted on the ship itself. Skeptics offer logical explanations for many of the reports. A massive, aging steel ship, like the Lexington, is naturally filled with noises. Creaking, groaning, and clanging sounds caused by temperature fluctuations, the movement of water, wind, and the simple settling of the enormous structure. Sound travels in peculiar ways through the metal corridors and compartments, creating echoes that can easily be mistaken for voices or footsteps. Drafts can move doors and light objects or create cold spots. In the often dimly lit and complex spaces below deck, pareidolia, the brain's tendency to see patterns or figures in random stimuli, can easily occur. Furthermore, the museum actively promotes its haunted reputation through popular ghost tours and overnight stays, which inevitably primes visitors and staff to interpret ambiguous experiences as paranormal. The inherently eerie and somewhat claustrophobic atmosphere of exploring a decommissioned warship also plays a significant role in stimulating the imagination. Regardless of the source of the phenomena, the USS Lexington has fully embraced its Blue Ghost title in both historical and spectral terms. The tales of phantom sailors add a chilling dimension to the already powerful experience of walking the decks of this decorated war veteran. Whether truly haunted by the spirits of those who served and sometimes died aboard her, or simply filled with the atmospheric echoes of a long and dramatic life at sea. The USS Lexington remains a compelling sight where history feels vividly and, for many, supernaturally alive. The Devil's Backbone, a haunted Texas ridge, winding through the beautiful rugged hills between the towns of Wimberley and Blanco, lies a prominent limestone ridge known as the Devil's Backbone. Offering breathtaking panoramic views of the surrounding Texas Hill Country, this scenic stretch, traversed primarily by Ranch Road 32, holds a reputation as dramatic and unsettling as its name suggests. It's widely considered not just a single haunted spot, but an entire region saturated with ghostly legends and paranormal activity, making it one of the most famously haunted areas in Texas. Unlike legends centered on a specific house or entity, the Devil's Backbone encompasses the ridge itself and the winding roads that trace its crest. Its history stretches back centuries, first as hunting grounds and territory for various Native American tribes, and later as challenging terrain for early Texas settlers. The lore surrounding the Backbone draws from both eras. Tales persist of spectral Native American warriors seen on horseback, perhaps still guarding ancient sacred sites or replaying conflicts lost to time. Some stories even speak of ancient curses or elemental spirits tied intrinsically to the land itself. The pioneer era added its own layers of tragedy. Stories of settlers meeting violent ends through accidents, illness, outlaw attacks, or clashes during the Civil War period, their spirits now said to wander the lonely hillsides. Those who travel the Devil's Backbone, especially at night, report a wide array of unsettling phenomena. Apparitions are frequently described, ghostly figures seen along the roadside who vanish upon approach, shadowy forms darting between the cedar and oak trees, spectral Confederate soldiers marching silently, or pioneer women eternally searching for lost loved ones. Phantom sounds are also common. Disembodied whispers carried on the wind, unexplained hoofbeats on pavement or gravel, strange rustling in the brush, or even the faint sounds of struggles or long-forgotten battles. Drivers sometimes report inexplicable car trouble, headlights flickering, or radios malfunctioning as they traverse the ridge. Many people simply describe an overwhelming feeling of unease, sadness, or the distinct sensation of being watched as they navigate the winding roads. A focal point for many of these stories is the historic Devil's Backbone Tavern, a well-known honky-tonk located along the route. While a popular spot for live music and cold beer, the tavern itself is considered a major paranormal hotspot within the haunted region. Staff and patrons have shared countless stories over the years involving moving objects like pool cues or glasses shifting on their own, jukeboxes playing when unplugged, apparitions glimpsed in mirrors or out of the corner of the eye, unexplained footsteps, and the general feeling of unseen presences sharing the space. Particularly after closing time, skeptics, of course, offer rational explanations for the Backbone's reputation. The evocative name itself certainly primes visitors for a spooky experience. The winding, hilly roads can be treacherous, especially at night, leading to misjudgments or heightened anxiety that might be interpreted as paranormal. The natural sounds of hill country wildlife, coyotes howling, cattle lowing, deer crashing through brush, wind whistling through the trees, can easily be misinterpreted in the dark, isolated landscape. Tavern, like many old establishments, likely has its share of creaks, drafts, and odd noises, and its owners and patrons often embrace and perpetuate the ghost stories, adding to the allure. Furthermore, prominent landmarks with spooky names often act as magnets, accumulating various unrelated local ghost stories over generations. Whether the Devil's Backbone is a genuine confluence of spiritual energy and restless spirits, or simply a strikingly beautiful landscape whose dramatic name and isolation have fueled generations of folklore, its legend remains firmly entrenched in Texas lore. The combination of breathtaking scenery, deep historical roots touching on conflict and hardship, a plethora of chilling tales, and the iconic tavern ensures that travelers along this stretch of hill country road will continue to glance nervously into the shadows, wondering about the spectral presences said to inhabit one of Texas's most haunted regions. Woman Hollering Creek, a cry in the Texas night. Southeast of San Antonio, near the town of Seguin, flows a creek bearing one of the most intriguing and evocative names found on any Texas map, Woman Hollering Creek. This unusual name alone seems to resonate with legend, hinting at sorrow and spectral cries said to echo through the landscape, particularly near the bridges where roads cross its path. The heart of the mystery lies in the sounds themselves, chilling cries drifting through the night air near the water. Visitors and locals have long reported hearing everything from heartbroken weeping and mournful wails to startling shrieks of rage or terror. But who is the woman hollering? Does the famed weeping woman of Hispanic folklore haunt this creek? Her tragic search for her drowned children making its presence felt here as it does near countless other waterways. Her tale certainly resonates deeply in South Texas, or perhaps the cries belong to a different spirit, born from a more specific local tragedy. Whispers tell stories of women betrayed by lovers or husbands near this very creek. Some driven to madness and murder, others victims of violence themselves, their final anguished cries forever imprinted on the location. The true source remains shrouded in layers of folklore and time. To visit the creek crossings, especially after dark, is often described as an unsettling experience. The air can feel heavy, charged with an unseen sorrow. Hearing the disembodied cries is the most commonly reported phenomenon, chilling listeners with sounds that seem undeniably human, yet have no apparent source. While less frequent, some accounts include fleeting glimpses of a spectral female figure near the water's edge, or simply an overwhelming sense of dread or of being watched. Of course, the rational mind seeks other explanations. The wind whistling through the trees or under the bridge structures can create eerie moans, and the cries of native wildlife, bobcats, foxes, owls, can sound uncannily like human screams in the stillness of night, especially to ears already tuned to expect something sinister. Pranks by those familiar with the legend also cannot be ruled out. Yet the creek's official, documented name, Woman Hollering, lends a powerful weight to the supernatural tales. While some have speculated about more mundane origins lost to history, perhaps involving a difficult childbirth centuries ago or even a forgotten family name, these theories lack the gripping power of the ghost stories. The name itself seems to demand a haunting explanation, a notion amplified when author Sandra Cisneros used it as the title for her acclaimed 1991 story collection, bringing its folkloric resonance to a wider audience. Whether the sounds carried on the night air are the echoes of a real tragedy, the spectral presence of the weeping woman, or merely the tricks of wind and wildlife playing on imagination stirred by an evocative name, Woman Hollering Creek remains a potent landmark in Texas folklore. It stands as a place where the chilling ambiguity of unexplained sounds meets the deep cultural resonance of tales about sorrowful, spectral women tied to water. The creek's name ensures the question will continue to linger, haunting the imaginations of those who pause by its banks. Who is the woman hollering, and why? The Lake Worth Monster, Beast of Greer Island. The summer of 1969 was a time of great change and upheaval across America, but for the residents near Lake Worth, just outside Fort Worth, Texas, it became memorable for a very different, much stranger reason. Over several weeks, this typically quiet reservoir and its surrounding woods, particularly the area around Greer Island, now part of the Fort Worth Nature Center, and refuge and a known local hangout, became the epicenter of a bizarre series of sightings involving a creature that defied easy description, the Lake Worth Monster. It began with scattered reports, often from couples parked near the lake at night or early morning. They described being terrified by a large, strange beast emerging from the woods or the water. accounts of the creature's appearance were confusing and often contradictory. Some said it was covered in white fur or hair. Others claimed it had scales like a fish or reptile. It was generally described as being very large, perhaps 7 feet tall, walking upright on 2 legs, yet possessing features reminiscent of a goat or perhaps some other animal, leading to early nicknames like the Goat Man of Lake Worth. One of the most famous early encounters involved the creature allegedly becoming agitated by onlookers and heaving an entire car tire and wheel assembly an incredible distance towards them before retreating into the darkness. As reports started hitting the local newspapers, public curiosity exploded. What began as a few isolated accounts quickly snowballed into a local phenomenon. Night after night, crowds of people, reporters, thrill seekers, serious investigators, and teenagers looking for excitement descended upon the shores of Lake Worth, especially around Greer Island. The scene became chaotic, with spotlights cutting through the darkness, cars jamming the narrow roads, and armed individuals hoping to bag the mysterious beast. Police were overwhelmed trying to manage the crowds and investigate the claims. Inevitably, amidst this frenzy, the likelihood of misidentifications, hoaxes, and exaggerated stories increased dramatically. Was that strange shape in the water just a large garfish or a beaver? Could the noises have been simple wildlife? Given that Greer Island was a popular spot for teenagers, many suspected elaborate pranks were being staged to fuel the excitement. The legend gained further traction when a local man, Alan Plaster, managed to capture a photograph of a large, furry, whitish shape crouched in the distance. Published widely, the photo became the iconic image associated with the creature. Yet it remained too indistinct and blurry to provide any real answers, serving only to deepen the mystery and fuel further debate. Theories about the creature's identity ran wild. Was it some undiscovered species, a genetic mutation, an escaped exotic animal, or something more supernatural? Skeptics leaned heavily towards misidentification or hoax, pointing to the lack of clear evidence and the circus-like atmosphere surrounding the sightings. The descriptions were simply too varied. Part goat, part man, part ape, sometimes scaly, sometimes furry, to point towards any single explanation. Then, almost as suddenly as it began, the frenzy subsided. After several weeks of intense activity and nightly vigils throughout July 1969, the sightings of the Lake Worth monster dwindled and eventually stopped altogether. The crowds dispersed, the reporters moved on, and Lake Worth returned to its former tranquility, leaving behind a bizarre and unresolved local mystery. Unlike the more persistent legends of creatures like Bigfoot in the East Texas woods, the Lake Worth monster phenomenon was a brief, intense flare-up of localized monster mania. It remains a strange chapter in Fort Worth folklore, a summer when something terrifying and inexplicable, whether real, imagined, or elaborately faked, seemed to crawl out of the lake and into legend, leaving behind only puzzling accounts, a blurry photograph, and the enduring question of what truly happened at Lake Worth that peculiar summer. The Candy Lady, a bitter taste of fear. Unlike a ghost tied to a specific old house or a cryptid glimpsed in the wilderness, the Candy Lady is a more insidious kind of legend lurking in the shadows of Texas urban folklore. She represents a terrifying, deeply unsettling fear that strikes close to home, the idea of hidden danger disguised as kindness, specifically targeting children through something seemingly innocent, candy. This legend isn't confined to one single location, but has emerged in slightly different forms in various Texas communities over the years, becoming a localized nightmare wherever it takes root. The core story, though varying in details, follows a disturbingly consistent pattern. In a particular town or neighborhood, there lives a woman, sometimes depicted as elderly and eccentric, other times unnervingly sweet, known for making delicious homemade candies, caramel apples, or other treats. She generously gives these sweets away to local children who are naturally drawn to her offerings. But behind the sugary facade lies a horrifying secret. The treats are laced with poison, shards of glass, or sharp needles. Eventually, children in the community begin to fall ill, suffer injuries, or, in the darkest versions of the tale, even die. Panic spreads as parents and authorities slowly piece together the terrible truth about the seemingly kind woman and her deadly confections. While specific towns like Terrell, Texas, are sometimes strongly associated with a candy lady legend, often linked to a local tragedy or figure there, the story's true power lies in its adaptability and its reflection of widespread societal fears. The legend taps directly into the primal anxiety surrounding stranger danger and the vulnerability of children. It also strongly echoes the recurring, though largely unsubstantiated, media panics about poisoned or tampered Halloween candy that surged in the mid-20th century and occasionally resurface. The Candy Lady provides a narrative and a face, often described as unsettling, perhaps living in a rundown house on the edge of town, for these amorphous fears. Her motives in the legends are usually attributed to madness, loneliness turned malevolent, or pure, inexplicable evil. Though the specific details might change from town to town, the Candy Lady legend persists, often shared as a campfire story, a sleepover dare, or even a grim cautionary tale whispered from one generation of children to the next. It serves as a stark reminder to be wary of accepting gifts, especially sweets, from strangers. It thrives in the realm of sleepover ghost stories and playground whispers. It's crucial, however, to view this legend through the lens of folklore rather than documented fact. While the fear of contaminated food or harm to children is tragically real, there's no credible evidence of any widespread phenomenon involving numerous women across Texas or elsewhere, systematically poisoning children with candy. Documented cases of tampered Halloween treats, for instance, are extremely rare and almost always traced back to the victim's own family, not a malicious stranger, fitting the Candy Lady archetype. The legend thrives not because it reports historical events accurately, but because it gives tangible form to deep-seated anxieties about the safety of children and the possibility of evil hiding in plain sight. The Candy Lady endures as one of Texas's more disturbing urban legends precisely because she feels chillingly plausible. She isn't a fantastic beast or a ghostly apparition from centuries past. She embodies a modern fear, the monster potentially living next door, exploiting trust and innocence. She is a haunting reminder that sometimes the sweetest offerings can conceal the most bitter dangers, ensuring her cautionary tale continues to leave an unsettling feeling long after it's told. And so, we emerge from the shadowy depths of Texas legend, back into the open sky. But perhaps not entirely unchanged. We've walked with phantom soldiers at the Alamo, searched for lost mines and pirate gold, encountered strange beasts, and listened for cries on lonely creeks. Where history ends and folklore begins in Texas remains perhaps its greatest enigma. These 12 tales are threads in a tapestry woven from frontier grit, cultural clashes, unexplained phenomena, and the undeniable weight of a wild history. What truly lies hidden in the shadows of the Lone Star State? Which of these chilling stories resonated most with you? Which shadow stretched longest in your imagination? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm truly fascinated to hear which legend captured your curiosity.